Greetings, listeners. My name is Justin Miller, aka the Mill in the MILCAM Sessions, doing our first podcast with my buddy Cam, the Cam in MILCAM Sessions. Today, we're going to be exploring some personal paranormal stories between the two of us, with some discussion in between. So, if this is your thing, please feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe, as we'd really love to keep this thing going. And also, if you have any stories after hearing our sessions that you'd like us to cover, please feel free to share them in the comments. We'd be more than happy to make this potentially into a series if things go well. So, the first story that we want to share is one of my own personal experiences, which I call the Boulevard Glitch, which is a weird encounter that I had with a friend of mine who was not Cam.
You have other friends besides
I
me.
do.
I'm
I know.
heartbroken.
I know. Isn't that ridiculous? But just know you're the only one that I'm actually doing a podcast with. So you've got that. That's actually pretty special.
Okay, well, I have that special place in your heart then.
See, plus, I usually refer to you as a brother, so that's also something better. See, you understand? It's better now. Eased? Okay, good.
I'm very appeased.
Perfect. So, this took place in the summer of 2005 on a very hot June day. And again, it was probably one of the weirdest experiences I've ever had in terms of something happening paranormal. And one of the few times where I've actually had someone who was with me at the time that was also able to corroborate this story. So please enjoy story number 1, which is the Boulevard Glitch. In June 2005, I went for a walk with a friend around Boulevard, a local park. It felt like a normal day until we saw a strange man who appeared to be glitching in and out of existence, like static on an old television set. What else was strange was the fact that he was wearing a bright yellow sweater and khakis on a scorching hot summer day. As we passed him, he shouted in a squeaky, high-pitched voice, "Watch Channel 10! You can see what you're doing!" Coincidentally, at the time, Channel 10 was the community events channel on Shaw Cable, so technically, he was right. After moving a short distance away from him, I looked back to see him glitching out once more until he faded out of existence.
Wow. Much more interesting than Green Day's Boulevard of Broken Dreams.
Please no dreams were broken in the making of this podcast.
Dude, yeah, I love that story. You've told it to me before. And I'm glad that we're starting off on a great note because like what the heck happened there?
Honestly, like I've gone through this so many times in my head, and I think it's honestly part of the reason why I can't stand the song "Tiptoe Through the Tulips"
Oh, because
by Tiny Tim.
he sounded
He
like that
does.
guy.
He absolutely sounded like Tiny Tim.
Hmm.
And like the strangest thing is, I mean, I admit it. Like, I obviously, you know me long enough that I have a visual disability, so sometimes my perception visually of the world isn't like anybody else's.
Yeah.
But to know that I was with someone else that also saw this guy like fading in and out of existence. That's why I said in the story that it was like watching TV on an old set with static, where you're watching a channel and it's like partially coming in and coming out and coming in and coming out, and that's basically what that guy was doing. He was vibrating, almost uncontrollable.
In the
He
park?
was yeah, he was standing there vibrating. So it's like if he wasn't vibrating, he wouldn't have been moving at all.
Oh, okay.
But it was violent, but not in the way of like um some type of medical condition, like say, I don't know, jerks from like Parkinson's or anything like that. It was literally just like full on body vibration, as if how can I describe? I'm trying to think, like, how else can I describe it?
Like those little back massagers or something where they like you press a button and they vibrate.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way to put it. So basically, he was vibrating incredibly quickly and then fading in and out as if he was made of static. But it was colorful static because you could literally make out those features, right? Like the fact that this guy was standing on a path on a really hot summer day, because I remember like this was 20 to 25 plus at the end of June, because we were going for a walk like on lunch. I think I was in grade 11 at the time. So it was like right at like during high school. And like, it was just the weirdest thing because the guy's not dressed for the weather, clearly. Because what are you doing wearing like a full on sweater and like khaki pants on a day where you should be wearing, shorts and a t shirt, right?
Right.
And, and then just, yeah, the other strange part was hearing him sound like Tiny Tim and telling us, to watch Channel 10 to see what we're doing. And like I say, it's weird because that is the actual channel at the time for Shaw Cable. I would know because I had Shaw in Thunder Bay at the time. That was the community events channel. So technically, when he says you can see what you're doing on Channel 10, if we're thinking from a community standpoint, he was right.
So I'm curious, you had Shaw Cable at the time. Did you check out Channel 10 after he said that to see if this was like some weird cryptic message leading you down a rabbit hole of conspiracy and intrigue?
The thing is with Channel 10 is if there was nothing on TV back then, I would check it relatively often. So I definitely think that I would have checked it out, but I don't know if I was actually led directly to it. I was more or less just kind of creeped out by the whole situation and was hoping that we could basically nope the fuck out of there as best we could. But the
Pretty fair.
but the problem was we had to walk past him just to
Ah,
be able to continue moving forward. So he basically kept saying it over and over again, but he didn't move. He just stood there.
wow.
He was vibrating, but he was stationary, and he
Wait,
just
how many times do you think he repeated that line?
he basically repeated it as soon as we came into sight, and then probably after we got out of his line of sight. So I'd probably say somewhere in the neighborhood of like 15 or 20 times.
Oh, like I guess I didn't know it was that many times. Like,
I don't think I mentioned that to before, to be fair.
I feel like that detail like makes it eerier because like that's so that's even like an extra element of it being like a glitch. Like, why is he repeating himself over and over again and then winks out of existence like that?
Yeah, it's almost like he's stuck on like some type of loop. Like I wonder if maybe looking back on it, if he was a spirit maybe and just stuck in one particular event in his life, which just so happened to be talking about watching Channel 10. Because I know one of the things that the viewers wouldn't know, um, but Cam, you might know because you've been in Thunder Bay for quite a while. But
Yeah.
um, I went to St. Ignatius High School, so if anybody knows where that is from Thunder Bay that sees this, it was very close to the Lakehead Psychiatric Hospital. So
And for our international viewers, Thunder Bay is a northern town in Ontario, Canada. Um, just in case we have people from across the globe tuning in. But sorry to mess up the flow there. But yeah, no, it was near the psychiatric hospital in the area.
part of me wonders if maybe he was a former patient and maybe he passed away and one of the delusions he was having maybe was involving Channel 10, and
Yeah.
that could have potentially why he was stuck in that loop. But again, it's really hard to know. And it's what was it, 21 years ago now. So that's
Well, you
that's
do see people that have psychosis. That can be one feature where they'll repeat something over and over again, or they'll repeat what another person's saying. Like it's an odd feature, but who knows? Maybe that could be a clue. The fact that it was such an odd thing to say, it was repetitive. Um, I really don't know. This is one of those things where I'm sure we'll never know the answer for sure.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's also like if he's wearing winter clothing, maybe if he, if he was a ghost, maybe he passed away when it was colder, or maybe like the fall, um, or he's from like some other dimension.
It also makes me wonder too if he had a condition like severe autism. Maybe he just really enjoyed that particular outfit and wore it all the time rather than doing something weather appropriate. Or it could be something even on the vein of something like schizophrenia. Because I know, even having a bit of a psych background, one of my teachers brought up a case where she had to be the assessor for a capacity assessment on a patient. And this gentleman went to his capacity hearing in the middle of February, and he was wearing shorts, a t-shirt, and sandals. And this was,
Oh, yeah.
you know, so it makes me wonder too. It could be something like that, right? There's a lot of area of interpretation that it can be opened up to, which I think this case, that's why I say I think this story is fascinating. And that's why I
Yeah.
wanted to share it with you from the get go, and then, share it with our listeners now. Just because, again, I don't really know how to fully explain it. Um, it's all just speculation, basically. I wish I would have had a smartphone back then, because I could have filmed it and then had a visual proof too. That would have actually been a great idea. But I've gone back to that path at Boulevard multiple times, and unfortunately, I haven't encountered him again.
Yeah, we've walked that path before, and yeah, I've never had anything odd happen there. Um, did you say like other people had seen it that day too?
That's the thing. We hadn't talked to anyone, but based on the fact that I had seen it, and my friend that was with me had seen it, I'm just thinking, unless we both had some sort of shared delusion that I'm not aware of, there couldn't have been somebody else there that wouldn't have seen him, because
Mm,
during the day, like, that path is usually fairly active. So I could certainly see if joggers were going by, but I don't know if he accosted anybody else, because I hadn't seen him say anything or try to interact with anybody else other than just us.
right, right. He just kind of winked out of existence, and you know he's off somewhere doing something.
Exactly. And maybe he'll repeat that. I honestly have to try it. Maybe to go back there around the same time. If I go at maybe the end of June, maybe it's something that occurs like around that time, almost like an anniversary of some sort. But
Maybe, maybe if you make like a summoning circle and you turn on channel 10, he'll appear.
unfortunately, I don't think we have Channel 10 anymore, because they switched from analog to digital. But
Oh,
I'd have to see if maybe I can find like a Channel 10 guide on YouTube or something. I don't know. It's really hard to say.
maybe even just an old TV guide, and set it on fire and be like, "Strange dude, come back."
Come back, yellow sweater man. But honestly, in all seriousness, like, I know we're joking around a little bit here, but if that person did have some difficulty in his life, and maybe was a spirit that ended in a tragic way, I hope that he was able to find the peace that he deserves, because
Oh yeah.
I couldn't imagine dealing with something like that. But that story is absolutely ridiculous. Like, um, I just don't know, but I just don't know exactly how else to to end that. To be fair, because it was
No,
quite strange.
I think this is one that just, it ends like it came, like very abruptly.
And on that note, Cam will be
Yeah.
introducing his first story, aka story number two.
Story number two is a personal story from myself. It involves strange orbs at night when I was a small little child. So here it is, story number two. As a young boy growing up in Winnipeg, I had a series of odd experiences. This was when I was quite young, about 5. It would always happen in the wee hours of the morning. I would awake early and see these red and green orbs descend from the curtains covering my window. They would slowly float down, 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 separating, dispersing, ultimately hovering around me in my bed. They were very ethereal and beautiful, and I remember finding them calming and pleasant. I was never paralyzed, so this doesn't reflect a sleep paralysis experience. In fact, I remember often playing with toys while sitting in bed with these things floating around me. I have a distinct memory of me playing with a Darth Vader toy with a broken lightsaber and holding it up to the orbs as they surrounded me. I don't know exactly how many times these lights surrounded me, but it was at least a handful of times before I told my mom about them. I remember playing one day and it striking me, hey, those lights aren't normal. For some reason, I would always see them and forget about it in the morning. When I told my mom, she was understandably skeptical, but told me that I could sleep in her bed that night, and if I saw the lights again, I could wake her up so she could see them too. So that night, I did sleep in her bed, and sure enough, the orbs returned. I did wake her up, and she saw them too. She didn't know what to make of them, and eventually we both went back to sleep that night. Years later, I asked her about this, and she said she truly did see them as well, and she told me she was really freaked out by them, not knowing what they were or what to do. They really unnerved her. I slept in her bed for a bit after this instance, and the orbs returned a couple more times. Each time, I would try and wake my mom up again, but she would not be rousable. Years later, my mom noted that she probably, on some level, didn't want to wake up and face the orbs again. They really, really concerned her, but she didn't know what to do about it. I have no idea what it meant, but the times after I showed my mom the orbs, there was a new kind of orb, along with red and green. Now there were some blue ones there. I ultimately only saw the orbs about 2 or 3 times after showing them to my mom, before they just stopped showing up entirely, never to be seen again. 27 years later, I've never seen anything like them since. I still have no idea what they were or what their intentions were. They seemed very benevolent, even angelic. But was this their true nature? Did they even exist at all? This experience feels burned into my memory, and the fact that my mom consistently upheld that she definitely, unequivocally saw them too, made it hard to chalk it up to a hypnopompic hallucination or some form of sleep paralysis. I guess I'll never truly know. Still, I think this experience set me on the path to keeping an open mind in the face of strange stories, and to not settle for simple explanations to unusual phenomena. Okay, and that's the tale. Um, Basically, the earliest high strangeness or odd experience that I've ever experienced personally. And so odd because again, just like your story, Miller, there's another person who agrees that it happens exactly as you remember it. So there's no, um, there's no monkey business going on with this. You know, like
Yeah, it's orb business.
it's orb business. It's green and red and sometimes blue orb business. And this is something that definitely, if I had only experienced it myself and I didn't show it to my mom or another person, easily would have written it off as, you were your little kid, it was late at night, maybe you were dreaming. It was definitely very weird, but, maybe it was just like one of those experiences.
That's the thing,
But,
because when you first shared that story with me, because I know like it's like with mine, where I shared it with you previously. You shared the orb one with me too a few times, but until we did this, I don't recall that you actually mentioned that your mom had seen it.
oh,
So
no? Oh,
yeah, so part of me was so part of me was wondering if it was just a way that a young kid would interpret things. The reason why I say that is because I know when spoiler alert for anybody who's watching with kids, but if when I used to believe in things like Santa Claus, Tooth Fairy, Easter Bunny, etc., I always remembered having this faint noise that I would hear whenever I would lose a tooth and have it under my pillow, and it honestly sounded like fluttering wings. and I would hear it
Mhm.
like all the time without fail when I had lost a tooth. So I'm wondering if my mind might have created that and had that expectation and therefore created the sound. So that was my first thought when you told me the story about the orb. But
Mhm.
knowing that you had someone else witness it, kind of takes that theory and turns it on its head.
Well, absolutely, because I think anytime I hear a story about seeing odd things or ghosts um, in the middle of the night when you're trying to sleep, not when you're like wide awake at night, but you're in bed in like some like half sleep state, you can't help but wonder, like, was this like sleep paralysis? Was this like a hypnagogic or hypnopompic hallucination of some kind? Like, we know that happens. A person that's otherwise like mentally very normal can have these experiences. Even like there's like a phenomenon called like phosphenes, where your eyes can be making odd stimuli, like you're perceiving like weird lights, but like none of these phenomena really seem to match it. And like I think the thing being that it was a shared experience really kind of clinches it. Like there's always like that idea of was it a mass hallucination, or you know I, I don't think that's a thing that can be very often happening. Like, unless also my mom was in a very hyper suggestible state, which, it feels like more of a stretch, and I wouldn't blame anyone for being a bit skeptical of a story that I were telling. But, you're asking me, I feel like that was weird. That was really weird. That was something that I feel like it definitely happened, and like I said in the story, like I have vivid memories of this, these lights surrounding my bed, just kind of hovering, and me being unfazed. I just kind of accepted them as very normal and kind of cool, and I would just be awake and then be like, what, I'm gonna play with my Darth Vader toy with the broken lightsaber, and make little light trails and woo lights kind of thing. It
It'd be
was
kind of neat. It'd be kind of neat if you thought with a lightsaber that you were creating the orbs too, just waving it
yeah.
around. But no, that's fair. Like it's definitely something that is strange, but I'm glad that it's comforting because it makes me think of paranormal documentaries that I've seen about orbs and how a lot of orbs are very playful and
Hmm.
comforting in that sense too, and are potentially they say that orbs are guides to the spirit world. So I kind of wonder if the place that you were living at the time, if it had any history like that, where maybe something had happened to the previous tenant or or previous owner or something like that, where those orbs are there basically to almost be like a spiritual beacon. Because it's good to know, like there are paranormal experiences that are obviously quite terrifying, quite distressing, but I'm
Oh yeah.
glad to know that this one was just kind of strange, but also comforting.
I think in the grand scheme of things, I got kind of lucky. I wasn't traumatized by these at all. If I saw like some horrible, you know, old lady cackling in my face, maybe I would be. But
I
no,
mean, I have, and you have met my ex's mom, so
well, she was just a real life kind of bog witch energy coming off her. But um, so an interesting thing about this story, in the 5 stories that we've selected for our viewers today, is that it's the only one, I think, that's not from Ontario. This one's from Winnipeg, the exotic land of the prairies. So yeah, I was so young. I don't know anything about the history of the house, but I do know that it used to be owned by a physician. Yeah, so I don't know what the deal is with that doctor that owned my house before, but hopefully he wasn't taking any corpses home with him, or or anything really weird or morbid. which I don't think he would, of course. But yeah, I have no explanation for it. It was just very odd. But it's almost like a gift, right? Like I I think when you have an experience like that and it's not horrifying, you have the gift of you have a bit of an open mind to things, and I think that's why I was always one to really enjoy, paranormal shows about aliens. I just you kind of have a bit of a thirst for like, hey, what's out there? There are some things out there that are not really known very well, and I think that's almost like my origin story, the orb story for me.
No, and that makes sense, right? Because having a welcoming, kind of playful, safe, for lack of a better word, paranormal experience when you're young like that really does help, so that you're kind of eased into it, in the sense that you're not completely terrified by something you can't explain. You're just more or less curious, and you question it, which is good. And then that way, if you are kind of exposed to paranormal activity in that way, it makes it easier for you to kind of just get into it and, yeah, enjoy paranormal shows. Like, I tell you all the time, I've grown up on unsolved mysteries, so I love
Oh
stuff
yeah.
like that. So, that's kind of where I'm at with it too. But just based on the research I've done, on the shows I've watched, and I mean, shout out to Creepy Canada. That's why I brought up the
Oh
orb
yeah.
story, because it reminds me of the Mar residence in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan,
Oh yeah.
where they had orbs that were one of the spirits that involved in their house, right? So it's it's kind of neat. Like, I like to know that, I could picture this image of you playing with the Darth Vader sword, Darth Vader with the broken sword, and just kind of taking in these orbs and just viewing them, and kind of feeling safe, but maybe even curious and maybe a bit excited, depending on how tired you were, and like the first time you had seen them. Um,
Yeah.
I'm just curious, like, when you've seen them, were they all around like similar times of year, or was it kind of like you might have one encounter where you saw them in the summer, you might have another where you saw them in the winter, that type of thing, or was it relatively around the same time each time?
It was during a more discrete period of time, and it's really fuzzy because I was quite young, but I would say it was within like under a year,
Oh,
and then
wow.
never again. Yeah,
So it's almost like they had their fun
they
for
had their
like a
fun.
period of a few months, and then they're just like, yeah, we're done.
Well, maybe these, whatever they were trying to convey a message to me, and they're like, "This kid's just playing with his friggin' Darth Vader again." Like, they just got sick and tired of it.
They're probably just like, you know what, screw this, I'm going to go to Thunder Bay, and I'm going to go
Yeah.
track down that weird glitching guy at Boulevard.
Well, it kind of, begs the question. Like, it had me thinking, like, we have this idea of what ghosts are, and there are different stories of them, but there's not a lot of like a clear rhyme or reason behind them. Like, why are some ghostly lights like orbs? Why are some appearing visually? Why are some like, I guess like transparent? Why do some look like their living self, yet some, for instance, like a beheaded person, you can see their beheaded body. Like, they don't always. There's many different kinds of spirits out there, and it's like, well, why are they like that? Or maybe they're all different things potentially, but or why if your glitch guy from Boulevard was a ghost, why was he like that? Why was he vibrating and glitching like that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
we need answers.
And it's also kind of neat too that you know we have two paranormal experiences that way. Like, none of them are really all that distressing, but
Yeah.
they're also kind of strange and hard to explain. And you're right, yeah, like entities can take many forms, and obviously, you've got playful orbs, but it also makes me wonder too if it's like there's such a thing as an intelligent haunting. So I'm wondering if maybe you being a kid if that spirit wanted to make contact with you, maybe it felt that going as an orb and making you feel comfortable was the best way to show itself to you. Whereas if you had seen it as an adult, I wonder if maybe it would have appeared differently.
I don't know. I've always wondered, and I have no clue. Because you can look stuff up online, and it's really hard to say like what has legitimacy or what doesn't. But the little weird detail that they were always red and green, red and green, red and green. And then I showed them to my mom, and then the next time, and they only appeared a few times afterwards, they were red, green, but now a bit of blue. Well, what's the blue? What does that mean? What was that supposed to? Does it mean anything, or is it
Yeah.
random? Like, and then why go away? Like, what happened there? It's very mysterious. Very mysterious.
No, it is. It's quite strange, but also very interesting. And like I say, it's got a bit of charm to it. So I really enjoyed the story the first time you told me, and I'm glad that we had an opportunity to share it with our listeners here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Yeah, exactly. Wherever this thing ends up, that's where we're happy to share it with our listeners. But I think on that note, Miller, let's get to story three. Story number three is one from you. So why don't you introduce it and we'll begin.
So my third story is a paranormal experience that happened between myself and the same person I was with um, during the story about the glitching man from Boulevard. So this is in Thunder Bay, Ontario as well. And where I am, there's a lookout called Rabbit Mountain. And Cam, you've been there.
Love
We've
Rabbit
gone
Mountain.
right.
Don't love the
We've
tick.
gone. No, we definitely don't love the ticks. We actually get quite ticked off with them. But but no, this story is really strange. It's actually an experience of, I guess, what I would think is missing time. So basically, I hope you guys enjoy this. If anyone has answers in the comments for this one or possible suggestions, like I'm open to them. Especially because you'll find out at the very end of the story, there's a weird part of it, that I kind of have a hard time grappling because I know this story happened and I know somebody else was with me, but I'm really curious to see what your guys' thoughts are, and I'm also curious to hear what Cam has to ask or say about this story too. I had the harebrained idea to go for a midnight walk with a friend on a random Saturday in the summer of 2008 to a local lookout called Rabbit Mountain. On the way, there's a hill you have to climb where an old, abandoned radio tower stands tall. I've walked this trail hundreds of times without incident, but something about this time was different. I heard the sound of a helicopter, but it was inside my head, and while I was walking on smooth, even ground, I suddenly collapsed and was completely unconscious. I woke up after what felt like 5 minutes, only to look at my watch and see that half an hour had passed. I have no idea what happened during that missing time period, and the craziest part is that my friend who was with me has no recollection of this event happening at all.
And we're back from story three. Um, it's an odd one, and I know when we sent each other these stories beforehand, and we've given them a listen. Um, I find this one quite unnerving because like what exactly happened? Like that like were you okay, man? Like were you otherwise doing well, or was there any like did you have any concussion symptoms? Like I because it's a quarry, I worry that you got like a boulder hitting your head and then like stars dancing around your head or whatever. uh,
I
but
can picture that, and it's funny. Not to plug a product, but I'm actually playing an old school hockey game right now. Not as we're doing this, but I just mean like in the general time frame each day. And it's like a cartoony thing. And like when you body check somebody, you have that little image of like the cartoon birds going around people's heads. So when you say that, that's the first thing I thought of. But no, I didn't. Like, I don't recall, and I know this isn't going to help my case, but I don't recall having any type of head injury at that exact moment. But that said, um, you know, Cam, you might not know this. I don't know if I've mentioned this to you before or not, but when I was born, I actually was born with a brain hemorrhage, and and it did cause me to have seizure activity, and I also had seizures up until about the age of 6, which I outgrew. But then, as you know, too, I did compete in mixed martial arts, and I know I've definitely experienced head trauma in that because, I mean, how couldn't you? You're getting hit in the head.
Yeah.
At that exact moment, no, it seemed like a normal, just a normal walk. The only thing that was kind of odd about it was the timing. But you know, the friend that I was with was always a night owl. He was up late all the time. I'll just refer to him as Jay going forward in this. Um, but, you know, he would ask me to do these things at odd hours. He would say, oh, you know, do you want to go up to Rabbit Mountain? And bear in mind, this was like on a Saturday night at like midnight. And we walked up on the same path that we normally go on. And because another thing, listeners, to kind of be aware of is I'm legally blind. So whenever I go anywhere with somebody, I don't tend to be the leader just because I'd rather follow somebody because they would know a path that's better than I would and things like that. Even though I've gone to Rabbit Mountain probably more times than I can count, but especially being at night, right, and dark, I wanted to be as safe as I could in that sense. But again, what's strange is like I know that the walk was going around swimmingly. Like there was no problem with it whatsoever. You know, we were talking, joking, and then you remember where the spot is. There's the hill, and there's that ditch kind of in the middle, and you have to go through the ditch and then go up to the second hill to get up to like where Rabbit Mountain Road is, which is on the way out to the lookout, right, where the radio tower is. So I remember just hearing like a helicopter, but you know, we didn't see any helicopters in the sky. There was no lights or anything, but it almost felt like a physical sensation, and as if I was the only one that was able to hear it. Like it honestly sounded like this helicopter was inside of my head, as weird as that sounds. And I remember even having, you know, a pretty rapid heartbeat, but we were going at a slow pace. So it's not like I was exerting myself and running or jogging. It was just a normal kind of slowly paced walk, right? Very calm, very casual. And then as soon as I heard the sound of the helicopter and had the physical symptoms, that's when I collapsed. And I remember then feeling lightheaded, like as I hit the ground. It almost felt like an episode of syncope. And then I more or less woke up and thought, oh, hey, you know, like I was maybe on the ground for a couple minutes. Maybe I just needed a rest. And I've always done this ever since I was a kid. I always wore a watch, and it's just because, again, a visual thing. It's if I ever have to be in an appointment, I kind of like having a visual representation right at arm's length, so I know what time it is, when I have to be there, that type of thing. So I remember looking at my watch and noticed like half an hour had gone by. So I don't know where that time went. You know, what happened to me potentially between the time I heard the noise of the helicopter and had woken up. And like I say, now that the story's through, the strangest part is, you know, Jay, who was with me, has no recollection of this event happening at all. But I know he was there.
So I want to ask you about that. So when did you talk to him about that? Did you ask him the next day? Because that's so bizarre. You remember going for this walk with him, and then you know this helicopter sound and missing time. And when you came to, was he still there?
He was there just standing beside me as if we had just been walking the whole time. So I had asked him I had asked him even right then if, you know, what happened to me. And he said, oh, like you were standing right here. And I know I wasn't standing because I had that physical sensation of falling down. Because I even like held on to my head while I was doing it. It was almost like um, I get migraines or sometimes pressure in my head too every now and again. So, I felt like it was going to be something like that. So I kind of clutched my head, fell down, and then,
He
I
didn't
guess,
even acknowledge that you fell, or
no, no, he
what
had,
was he doing? So that's like kind of creepy, because I guess we can reveal like we're not particularly close with Jay anymore for reasons, but that's just kind of sketch. Like why? I don't know. It's just odd. And
well, see, part of me wonders if he just doesn't want to admit it because of those types of things, the type of person that he is, what I know about him now. But it also could be that if it was something involving missing time, as we know, if this was an extraterrestrial thing, a lot of victims of missing time don't have a recollection of an event that they were in. So,
oh yeah, like maybe he was involved too, and
and maybe, I remember what happened to me and he didn't. Because the thing is, I brought it up multiple times. I brought it up immediately after it happened. I brought it up as we were walking home. I brought it up, a couple of weeks later. I've brought it up even years later because this happened in 2006. So, 20 years, it'll be in June, it'll be 20 years ago. And, again, um, but one thing, actually, a friend of ours, who I'm going to refer to as M, he's a mutual friend of both mine and Cam. I kind of gave him like a sneak preview of the podcast tonight because he was asking about it. And I told him the story because I hadn't told him before. And he did raise the suggestion, if this was potentially a dream, which, okay, I'll admit it, I can't 100% rule that out. But if it was a dream, it would have to be one of the most vivid I've ever had because I have the physical sensation. I know exactly where I was when I fell. I could point it out, next time we go up to Rabbit Mountain as well. And, that's why I think that it was more than that. But I
yeah.
understand completely why somebody might be skeptic and suggest that as a possibility hearing it for the first time. But, I did have the physical sensations. I had, minor scrapes and things like that too, because as Cam mentioned previously, this was a quarry. Well, I guess it still is a quarry technically. It's just not used anymore. But it's
Yeah.
very rocky ground, very rough shale. So if you fall in those areas, you're gonna, especially if you're not wearing thick clothing, which we weren't because it was in the middle of summer, so it was like shorts, t-shirt again. Didn't see another guy in khakis and a yellow sweater, but that's beside the point. But I had physical reminders of it. So unless I
Hmm.
dreamt it and fell out of my bed and somehow managed to land on gravel, like I don't know how that could have been possible. But either way, yeah. So I don't know if someone else can kind of shed some light on that and maybe confer with me if that was potentially missing time or if there's some other explanation. Like I'd love to hear it because I honestly have no idea.
Well, I mean, I feel like there can always be some explanation, and that doesn't negate that 20 years later, this still sticks out in your head as really weird. Something happened that you know you feel really convinced about, and it is undeniably really odd. So yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's a way to get a full answer here. Maybe one day we'll do an episode on like Thunder Bay legends, and we can look up if there's any stories from Rabbit Mountain. Because I'll admit I haven't heard of anything specifically, but I don't know. There are weird ghost stories and legends everywhere, so it would be interesting to check that out. Maybe.
It's definitely something I could bring up because I do know of stories that have been passed down to me through Rabbit Mountain, plus incidents that I've heard as well.
Oh, really?
And we do, yeah, and I do
That
have
would be a
another,
good episode too.
I do have another kind of strange incident too, and I don't really understand this one either. But this one, Jay was with me too, and he does know. But it was actually kind of odd because we went for another late night walk, but this one was kind of in the late fall, and we were like I had noticed snow, and I had snow physically fall on me, but it was just in that one spot. Jay had no snow on him whatsoever. He did see that it was snowing, but it literally just landed on me and nowhere else.
That's another weird one. Like what?
I
It
know.
was like a cloud just following you specifically, and
It honestly makes me think of like a snow version of like the Lakitu or something.
oh yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm just going to snow on you and that's it. But it was bizarre because you could see it. Like you could literally see it. I had a black sweater on, and you could see the white snowflakes just all over the sweater. Like I was covered.
You
Okay,
weren't like
like
at a hockey game and a Zamboni was going by or something, right?
no, this was literally right at the top of the lookout,
Huh.
and we were on our way back, and I had felt drops at first, and I remember saying to him, "I'm like, Jay, then do you feel that? Like it feels like it's raining or it's snowing?" And he's like, "No, it's not." Then he looked at me, and he's like, "Holy shit!" Because I was covered, man. I had a layer of just white snow just all over my sweater, and like it was literally just in that one spot. So I almost felt like that episode of The Simpsons with Krusty. It's like, why does this always happen when I stand here?
That's another bizarre one. Like, it seems like the laws of physics do not apply on Rabbit Mountain.
Especially with blind guys that go for walks at midnight.
Especially with blind guys that go for walks.
See,
Um,
that would be my Goosebumps episode. The blind guy walks at midnight.
it's funny because with the Boulevard Glitch guy, I just imagined like some like cheesy '90s Goosebumps effect for it. Like I don't know, because I wasn't there, I can't picture it. So I just picture whatever like lame late '90s effect they would have used.
It'd be kind of amazing if they had like Christmas lights or something and just kept flicking them on and off.
Yeah, or they just like I don't know, put you behind some green screen and I don't know, do their thing. But
But yeah,
um,
like I had said before, anybody, especially, I'm very curious to hear what anybody says through YouTube for this my second story. But with that, on that note, please feel free to comment once again on all the stories you've heard tonight, and make sure to suggest stories of your own because we'd be happy to look into some content and potentially feature them on this brand new up and coming channel, which hopefully will sound less awkward the more times we do it, but be that as it may.
yeah, we're young, eager guys doing this as like a hobby. It's a passion project. We're not looking to get rich off YouTube. We're just we got passion for the game. The spooky narration and podcast game.
But if
So
the
yeah,
green comes, I'm not going to say no.
I mean, well, of course, if the green comes, I'm not gonna say no either. But
Matter of fact, I might say yes.
yes, yeah.
But
um,
with that, we'll move on to Cam's second story, aka story number 4.
yes, this is story number 4. This was a story from a few years ago. I think it was around the time of the pandemic, actually. Um, me and my then girlfriend at the time going on an excursion. So I'll let you hear the story right now. One lazy summer, after a long day of swimming up by the falls at Wolf River near Nipigon, Ontario, my girlfriend at the time, let's call her C, and I decided to check out the old St. Sylvester Church. We had discussed it a few times the week prior, but the decision to check it out was a somewhat spontaneous one. I'd never heard of this church before, but C had learned that it was nearby a hiking trail and had an old cemetery on its grounds. She thought a little ghost walk could make for a fun, spooky adventure, and I immediately took to this idea. Besides a few guided tours, I had never gone on a ghost hunt before. Somehow, despite growing up watching all kinds of paranormal shows, I'd never gotten around to checking out any cemeteries or creepy locales after dark. We ended up arriving somewhat late, due to getting turned around a few times on some of the back roads. My old Honda ended up getting absolutely coated in red dust on the way back from Wolf River, but we managed to find our way. The time on my Honda said 12:30 when I parked and we hopped out of the vehicle. We begun by walking around the graveyard, looking at the old crooked gravestones. Most of them were simple gray tablets or small white crosses. The graveyard certainly didn't look very high traffic. However, it wasn't completely abandoned either, with the odd flower wreath near a headstone. I had brought a flashlight with us, and was swooping the arc of the light around, closely surveying for any ghostly spectre or grimy ghoul. It was a crisp August night, and aside from the odd truck zooming past Nippigan Bridge in the distance, it was quiet. Aside from that bridge, there really wasn't much around the area. No other houses or buildings, just a lot of road and brush. Inspecting the church itself, it was hard to tell if it was still in use, as the windows were too high to see in. All that was really visible was a wooden crucifix near the head of the podium, with an agonized Christ looking sorrowfully downward. However, based on the condition of the next building, it seemed unlikely it was still being used. The next building was more house-like, and appeared to be the dwelling where the priest or minister might live. Peering inside, it was kind of a mess. It was littered with ripped-up insulation and scraps of wood and junk. Maybe the owners had been renovating? We made our way, progressing through the center of the graveyard, stopping to read some of the stones and inspect the odd statue or carving. The grass was long, and a few crickets chirped as we disturbed them by walking by. It wasn't too long before we reached the end, and were faced with the black maw of the forest behind the grounds. Somewhere around, there was supposedly a trail, but it was much too dark to make anything out. Our visibility was further compromised, as the flashlight suddenly started flickering, sputtering out and only permitting brief, infrequent flashes despite my best fiddling with the batteries. Now normally I'd say this could easily be a coincidence, and truthfully it could be. However, what was odd was that I had just bought this flashlight and the batteries that day. It was brand new, and the batteries had no business running out and causing flickers so early into their life. I removed the batteries and placed them back in. Nothing. I tapped the head of the flashlight with the palm of my hand. Still nothing but a few flickers. The flickering and the immense darkness started to creep out see, and she suggested that we make our way back. I agreed, and we started for the car. By now the flashlight had seemed all but dead to rights. However, after only a few paces away from the forest, the light flicked back on, independently. This time staying on without any issue as we walked to the Honda. We buckled up, ending our adventure, and setting off home to Thunder Bay. Oddly enough, I never had any other issues with that flashlight, and it still works flawlessly to this day. The batteries seemed fine afterwards as well. Some years later, I came across a book on Ontario history and legends, and was able to find a short chapter on St. Sylvester's Church. The church was constructed by the Jesuits in 1877, as it marked a strategic location along the Ontario River network for transporting goods necessary to their mission. The church is now governed by the Red Rock First Nations Band, with Ojibwe Catholics serving as caretakers for the historic land. Interestingly enough, church services do sometimes still occur, however only during the summer. It may only be one annual summer mass on Aboriginal Day at this point. I'm not sure. At one point it was also still used for weddings, christenings, and funerals. Perhaps it still is. The rough-looking house beside the church used to be for traveling priests. Speaking to a friend about this later, they remember hearing from a friend that there's still a guy living in the basement of that building. I'm not sure how or why they'd know that, but maybe they have some connections to the First Nations band. Or maybe they encountered him going on their own late-night visit. Who knows? It seemed pretty dead when I was there. Doubtful anyone would live there with so much detritus and broken, splintery wood about. The author of the book I found interviewed a woman named Norma Lesperance about the place, as her family were involved with the caretaking and upbringing of the church. She notes that visitors should never visit at night. I obviously did not know this at the time. She recounts a story of a group of church parishioners walking to St. Sylvester's one Christmas Eve long ago, who were confronted by a black humanoid shape striking a terrifying figure. The parishioners held up their rosaries and started praying, and the shadow being vanished. Another group of people, walking further down the road, witnessed the parishioners being terrorized by this shadow person and ran up to them, finding a strange burnt patch where the entity had stood. It gave the impression of having melted back into the earth, possibly back to hell or wherever it came from. Other accounts of faint whispery voices, apparently once even appearing audibly on a recording, give credence to the haunted reputation of the church. Although we didn't see any shadow people on our visit, it could not be denied that the place had a sinister vibe that night, particularly near the forest. I sometimes wonder if the flickering light was meant as a precursor warning, giving us a chance to leave and avoid a confrontation similar to that of the parishioners many years ago. So, thoughts on that?
So, St. Sylvester's. So I'm just trying to know, like, from when I heard the story from you and went over it, was this something that you were familiar with before you had gone on the trip with C, like something where you had read about it, or was this kind of something that C knew about that shared it with you? Because I'm sorry if I missed that in the story. My
Oh.
apologies, but
No, I
I,
didn't. I didn't know any of the legends of the area. I so she just brought it up as like a an idea of something we could do as like a fun excursion. Like just
mm,
check out. Like actually, she also was interested in the hike. We didn't end up ever going on the hike because there is a hiking trail back there. But she mentioned, there's a graveyard. You can just go there and check it out. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm like totally down for that.
mhm,
But I didn't know if there was like anything there. But the fact that the timing worked right, we had a very nice day at Wolf River, which is about an hour drive away from Thunder Bay, close to Nipigon. Beautiful, just a bit of a dynamic, difficult hike to get down to. But when you get down there, it's like this beautiful waterfall. So we had a nice day, but then you know, it's not too far away from Wolf River, so we thought, let's check it out. Let's do what we had discussed maybe like two or three times,
mhm.
and it was pretty interesting.
So when you're talking too about the atmosphere, like
Mhm.
what particularly about it like made you feel unsettled? Like was it just did you have a feeling like almost like a tightness in your chest or like a gut feeling that maybe something was off about it, or what about it kind of gave you that feeling?
Well, I mean, I think it's hard not to just have a mild sense of being unsettled in like a somewhat secluded rural graveyard in the middle of the night, right?
Hmm.
Like the setting is spooky, and like investigating it, it's interesting. Um, like the house that's next to the main chapel. It did look all kind of on the inside. There was all this like debris and detritus and like insulation and like wood and stuff. So it looked a little jank. Um, so it was kind of like a mildly spooky, but just kind of fun experience up until that point. But I think like just when the light started to go off, it seemed a bit,
Hmm.
you know, um, like a bit, hey, like maybe this is a sign we should cut it short. Like I think we wanted to have a good time, but you know,
Not a long time.
we didn't want to be like, you know, attacked by I don't know, some demon like in the story. We didn't know this.
Yeah.
We didn't know about that story when we went there, but I mean, like it's secluded. It's not like the graveyards that are in Thunder Bay or anywhere else where there are some houses around and it's residential. Like you can see the bridge to Nipigon like in the distance, but there's like nothing around. So it's got that
Hmm.
vibe. So you don't really want to play around too much. Like we were pretty sensible, and it just like I don't. I feel like I'm harping on the newness of the flashlight, but I had just bought that thing,
Hmm.
and it flickered, and it wasn't working well, and it just like just at the end of the graveyard, like the forest was
Yeah.
very very black at night and very like imposing, and then as we started walking away from it, the flashlight started to work again, and it's not like it's like a cheap flashlight um, that I've had issues with since. It's been working great since then. So very like it. Of course, it could be a coincidence. Like if we had our own version of Doubting Dave. Again, that's a Canadian reference. I'm sure he would say, it's probably a coincidence that like the battery wasn't very good or something. But like, I don't know. It doesn't quite. That doesn't quite check out for me. I think
See, but I would doubt doubting Dave right there, because if the battery started working again after you
it,
left,
it started
and
working again. That I used that flashlight with that battery for like another 2 years, and then when I changed it, it worked fine. Like you have to be almost kind of willfully, looking for another explanation at that point.
exactly, and I mean the thing with it too is, anybody who has even a passing interest in paranormal knows that ghosts draw energy from things like flashlights, electronics. So,
Right.
it's definitely plausible if you go into somewhere that is a graveyard, right? I mean, you're surrounded by by the dead. So, it's highly likely that if you're going to find paranormal activity, that would be the place to find it.
Hmm.
And now, the other thing too is, I know, like toward the end, you talked about, the light almost being like a warning to you. So I just want to make sure I understood properly. Are you, in
Oh,
that sense, were you referring to the flashlight issues that you were having, or did you see like another light, almost like an orb, being a
oh,
specter toward you?
no orbs in this story. Orbs in the orb story, but
Fair enough.
no, the light being the flashlight flickering.
Okay,
And
that's what I thought, but I just wanted to double check upon hearing it for the first time, because that was a bit of a refresher for me. So it's
yeah, and I don't know if it was a warning. Like it's kind of just speculation where it's like, but it kind of gives a bit of a feeling of a warning of like flick, flick, flick. Obviously, we didn't encounter any, um, shadow people or any like weird humanoid figures out there. Thank goodness. Like that would have been very disturbing if we had. But
Yeah, I mean, if you had encountered something similar to the author of the book that you had read, which I know I had read, um, I think it was a book called Haunted Northwestern Ontario, or something to that effect, where it did actually bring up the cemetery at Saint Sylvester. So like I know a little bit about it. It's very passing though. I've never had like a true experience there or anything like that. But in a way, it's kind of good, because like even if it's not a general warning with the issues with the flashlight, it was obviously a warning enough to you to know that, hey, it's time to get out of here. Because like
yeah,
I know if I was there, I'd be saying the same thing, especially because blind guy in the dark is a very bad combination,
well,
especially on a.
yeah. No, man, like you're right. Like, I think a sighted guy and gal in the dark was not a great combination either. It's almost like you know whatever was there was like, okay, you can look around a bit, but oh, you're still here. Like, okay, get out of here now. You don't really belong. It's been a while. Vamoose.
It's kind of funny when you mention that. It kind of makes me think of like it almost being like an urbex story, where like you're in an
Yeah.
abandoned building and the security guard decides like to be nice to you for a bit, then it's like, okay, no, now it's time to go.
It's like, oh, they want to check out the graveyard. Okay. Um, no, I'm actually curious about if you happen to remember any of the stories off the top of your head, because like what I got from that chapter in that book is like I think because it's the First Nations band, like often um, they sometimes keep their stories close to their chest. Like they don't want to share
Hmm.
it with just anyone. Sometimes these stories have a lot of like cultural significance. Like obviously, the woman interviewed felt comfortable to share a tale that she was aware of. But there might be more. Like I did a quick Google. Like I looked around before this episode to see if there was, any other known stories that was on the internet, and I didn't do like a thorough job, but I didn't see anything. Nothing really came up.
That's the
So
thing.
curious,
It's
curious if you
it's
know of anything.
that's the thing. I'd have to see if I can find that book again, or even just see if I can remember it from Amazon. Because like in the process of moving, I'm not sure if that's one of the books I got to take, unfortunately, because the ex basically took most of them. so
So,
uh,
was it? Are we sure it's not the same book? Because I remember she showed me that chapter in the book, and then I took a few photos of it, and then I like saved them away because I was like, oh, I might want to do a podcast with this story someday. Um,
I think that would be the same book then, because we had gotten it. Um, I'm trying to remember where that was from.
hmm.
We either went somewhere and it had like local books, and we grabbed it, or it might have been something that we found via Amazon, because we had about two or three of them. Um, some were specifically focused on Thunder Bay, and then others were focused on northwestern Ontario and the surrounding area. So I'd have to see if I can find those again. I might be like
Okay.
Haunted Thunder Bay or Haunted Northwestern Ontario or something like that. But I think it is the same book.
Well, if you can dig them out, it might be good fodder for any future episodes that we do for the area.
Hmm. I'd be totally down for that actually if we can, because I feel that doing stories even about our local area, and I mean, if you have any stories that you'd want to cover from Winnipeg or from where you are now, like you can do that as well. I think that'd be kind of neat. But I like having a Northwestern Ontario tie. I want to see if I can find any stories of even Lake Superior as an example, like haunted stories of Lake Superior, just specifically on the North Shore, like our area, just
Oh yeah,
because I have such a connection to the lake, right? So, um,
I'm sure we can dig up some. We've both been around. Like we've heard some things. Like we can maybe rack our heads a bit and put some ideas together.
mhm.
But yeah, I think we should get on to the final story. I'll let you introduce it. It's your story. So
I was going to say, tying in actually with Lake Superior is actually kind of poetic for me for this, because this story is about my dad who unfortunately passed away in 1995, and he actually had a very strong connection to Lake Superior as well. He worked as a as a welder on the Great Lakes Freighters here in Thunder Bay. So that's why, if anybody who knows me knows how much I'm interested in the story of the Edmund Fitzgerald, which we're not going to be covering here, but um, that's why, because the lake actually reminds me of my dad, and I wanted to do this as a way to kind of share something special about the first time I had seen my father's spirit when he passed away, especially as his birthday's coming up. His birthday was actually January 20th. So
oh,
um,
that's really soon.
yeah, so it's fitting, that we're doing that around this time. And he would have been 73 actually if he was still with us. But I do feel like in a spiritual sense he is still with me, because I do have many encounters where I've seen him over the years, or heard his voice, or felt his presence. And this one's the very first one. This is one of the only stories that Cam had no knowledge of prior to listening to it before we started the podcast. So I'm guessing he might have some more questions about this one than any other ones. But
Yeah,
either
definitely.
way, this one's very sentimental to me, and it was kind of the first thing that helped me get over the loss, and the grieving of the loss of my dad. So I hope you guys enjoy it. My father passed away in April 1995, and I've had many experiences involving him through the years. The first one occurred shortly after his passing. We were having a bonfire in July, which is something he loved putting on for family, friends, and neighbors. So, looking back on it now, I'm not surprised that I saw him. I was walking back to the house when I saw a man with long blonde hair, wearing blue jeans and a white t-shirt, who greeted me with a warm smile. It took me a moment to recognize who it was, but when I did, I knew it was my father, letting me know that he was okay and coming to enjoy one last bonfire.
So, excellent story, man. Another one that's kind of like I think we're kind of we're including our origin stories a bit here, like what kind
Mm-hmm.
of got us interested in the paranormal, in unusual stories, and because you said you were maybe 7 or 8, like you were quite young.
Yeah. Um, that's the thing. He passed away in April '95, so I would have been 7, yeah, 7 at the time, and then the bonfire happened in July. So as a child, especially being so young, it was hard for me to process that loss. Like I remember even not fully understanding, what death meant at that time. Um, and I mean, my brother kind of grieved it. Like I have an older brother; he's 4 years older than I am, but he was very upset, very angry, and I just was kind of trying to come to terms with the fact that my dad was gone. Like I wasn't at the point where I was upset yet
Hmm.
when that immediately happened. As a matter of fact, I remember going to the the service, and I remember quite vividly a priest gave me a hug and said, "I'm so sorry," and I remember saying to him without skipping a beat, "Why? You didn't do anything." And it made everybody else start laughing, which was good because it's like that child innocence, right?
Hmm.
And I tried to take that time and process it, and it was hard, especially because I had a lot of other things that I was dealing with at the same time too. I'm not trying to make this about me, but being a person who's legally blind, I was the target of bullies even back then. So, trying to deal with that, it almost felt like, oh, now I don't have a father, like this is could be something else they can use as ammo, as some kids would. And I had a hard time coming to grips with it. But what really helped was that first encounter of just seeing him as I recognized him. Um, just white t-shirt, jeans, blonde hair, and the thing is, too, he had a very distinct mustache. Like it was just a bright blonde mustache, but it was huge and something that was very vivid. And like he has my build too, except he was taller. He was maybe about, I think maybe a shade under 6 feet, but like 200 pounds and kind of chunky like I am. And I remember just all these vivid memories of him, like coming downstairs one time and he's just sitting there on the couch, just in a pair of sweatpants, no t-shirt or anything, but all we did was hang out and watch cartoons. And that's why it was so comforting to see him where we were, because as I said in the story, he loved bonfires, and we literally put them on like every Saturday. We had a local radio station here back when it used to be good, which is Rock 94. It used to just be called 94 FM back then. And they would have a classic rock block on Saturdays. It was from like 8 till midnight. And we would put that on and we'd just be hanging out, having marshmallows and smokies and, everything you do around the bonfire. And, it was just something he loved doing. So like we'd have family come over, we'd have friends come over. I actually met like a childhood friend that way because he had an older brother who was friends with my brother, and they both came. And now that's my friend who I'm going to refer to as D. We've been lifelong friends
Hmm.
since then, probably since about the first grade. And just knowing that we had this bonfire and seeing my dad as he was, looking calm, looking happy, he was close enough for me to see him smile, which for a guy with limited vision, that was a really welcome sight because, it kind of gave me that first sense of finality, right? That, okay, he's no longer here physically, but he's still here with me. And you know, as I've gotten older, I've seen him more frequently too. And it all started with that first encounter. And I could actually even show you, the next time we ever come up to visit my parents, I could show you like where that spot is, because it's literally just right by. If you remember what the property looks like, you know how there's the barn
Oh yeah,
on my parents' property, right?
yeah.
And there's you ever see that cement pad on the way down to the barn, like at the front?
The what? Sorry.
There's like a cement pad. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, it was right at that hill there, right up, like right up below the
Oh.
cement pad. I saw him walking up the hill toward me as I was going away from the fire and going to the house. And that's why I say it was so vivid, right? Because his jeans were like bright blue, like really, really, really light blue, and a white T-shirt. So against the black of the dark night, right?
Mm.
It's it stuck out very well. So it makes me wonder if he appeared to me that way, just to kind of go like, he knew obviously that I had my challenges with vision. So what's the easiest way that he can appear? But that's how he always appears to me, actually, in that same in the same clothes and that same smile, And I think about it, years later, and just think like how, what a wonderful man he was, like even for the short time that I had him. And I don't know if I told you this story, dude, but you might like this because I know you enjoy classic rock. So, um, my my dad had a charity that he started for the shelter house called Raise a Little Help. Shelter House is a local homeless shelter here in Thunder Bay, and he would get these sweaters made. They said Raise a Little Help. They were gray, and the Raise a Little Help was in like an orange and purple font. And he got me one and him one, but rather than it saying help, he crossed it out and wrote an L, so it said Raise a Little Hell on her trooper. And it's just I have a vivid memory of that. I was probably 4 or 5 at the time. And I have a vivid memory of like looking down and seeing that and just feeling like I'm just this little badass, because I'm here to raise a little hell.
You have the HE double hockey sticks word on your shirt.
Exactly. And
Uh,
going to a Catholic school, that's fantastic.
oh, you wore that to school?
Oh, 100%.
I hope
I
you
was
didn't
asked,
get beaten by the nuns there.
no, I was asked to remove it, unfortunately. But like the best one
Wait,
actually
the
was the
Catholics were asking you to remove clothes? That's pretty sus.
that's very sus. Thankfully, it was just a sweatshirt and nothing else. But I did actually wear it once, and I got through it as a whole day, and nobody caught me, which was fantastic. Because I'm like, how do you not notice? Like it's bold, man. Like it literally says "raise a little hell," and maybe those teachers were Trooper fans. I really don't know, but
Maybe they knew, yeah, or they just weren't paying attention, or they're like, ah, the poor visually impaired boy. He doesn't know that he has an obscenity on his shirt.
maybe
Let's
we
not
shouldn't
tell him.
tell them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, that's why I say, getting back to the main point, like just having that opportunity for my first step toward closure was really important. And like being a father now myself, I really view a lot of the things that my dad did as things that I do, because he was very hands on. He spent a lot of time, doing things with his kids, whether it was doing athletics with my brother or, playing board games or video games with me or watching cartoons, or he got me into a lot of my lifelong passions. Like it's because of my dad and being into things like Led Zeppelin, Def Leppard, the Doors, Aerosmith, and my mom as well, where I got into rock and then got into metal. It's
Yeah.
because of my dad and my mom starting us watching wrestling and Unsolved Mysteries. It's like the same thing. These are lifelong connections that I've had, and I still do to this day. And it's because of him. So just having that, little moment of just kind of being able to be reassured like that by his presence, was truly incredible.
I can't imagine what an experience that would have been um, like at that age. Like you just see him, and like were you able to process that you had that you had seen something like that at that age?
Well, the thing is, I knew that it wasn't the same as seeing him when he was alive, because you could see kind of the glow, the silhouette kind of thing. I know it's cliche, but I could tell that he wasn't living, when I had seen him, but he looked like he did in life, if that makes sense. Like he was happy, he was at peace. And I mean, apologies to any listeners who might be triggered by this. So, if you want to skip past this part, you certainly can. I'm only going to talk about it briefly. But unfortunately, my dad lost his battle to mental health, and took his own life. So, I'm glad that I saw him in the form that I knew him, rather than, the form from the aftermath or anything like that, because I know he's still part of the property where my parents live. He's also still property at the last house that I was at, because I actually had a conversation with him where I had said that, his spirit's welcome to follow me. And I've had experiences there too, which I'm happy to share in another episode.
Right.
But yeah, like I feel like as a 7-year-old kid, and also hearing and seeing paranormal stories on a show like Unsolved Mysteries, that did help me understand what I was seeing and kind of give me that closure. Because as much as I wanted to, I knew I couldn't reach out and hug him. But I'm glad to know that he was there, and he seemed at peace.
Yeah. That 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 would have been amazing to see, like the smile, the presence. Like I'm picturing like an angelic vibe to it. It probably doesn't hurt that he's got this long blonde hair, and he's kind of has this iconic look to him. With the white shirt, the jeans, the mustache. Um, And yeah, no, I have no doubt that he's, based on everything you've told about your dad and what you've seen over the years, that he's kind of on the property. He's there. He's looking after you. Um, he wants. I get a sense that he wants to still see you grow up into a man, watch you raise your son, and see your life. Um, Even though he wasn't able to continue with his.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel that I only got the 6.5, 7 years with him, but they were very good years, and it took me a while to to kind of get over that, because when you lose a parent the way that I did, sometimes you go through these feelings of feeling guilty or upset, or like you're to blame in some way, or questioning, why they do it, like why are you not here anymore, do you not know what you missed out on, like that type of thing. But as I've gotten older and I've become educated, and have a son of my own, um, I've really grown to respect and love the man that he was and still is, to that extent. And that I think it all started with that first experience of just seeing him in a familiar setting, seeing him at peace, and enjoying one last bonfire, which is something that he truly cherished, that we literally did on a weekly basis in the summer.
What a beautiful setting for him to show himself to you. There's something special about a Thunder Bay bonfire that I'm sure your dad really understood. But those summer nights, just with like the Smokies and the drinks and the good company. I'm sure whatever exact difficulties he was having with his mental health, in moments like that where he was with his family, where he was with you, and he was doing things that he had a real like zest for life for. Like I'm sure things were better or more tolerable in those moments for him.
Mm-hmm. No, that's just it. That's why I'm glad I kind of get to get this out there too. It's therapeutic, and you know, um, I just always want my dad to know, obviously, that he's never far from my thoughts. That's why I'll never forget January 20th. And it's something I always try to, celebrate in some way, whether it's listening to some of the music that he liked, whether it's, even making that acknowledgement or doing something that, we both enjoyed. It does really help. And also, if, you're listening, Dad, I hope you enjoy this. And I hope I gave, our first encounter stories and, a true sense of justice. Because it's something that's, again, very sentimental to me. And I'm happy that I got to share it.
And I think we had both briefly discussed this, but this episode is obviously dedicated to your dad, because it's it feels fitting, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to clarify one other thing, just for anyone listening who's maybe curious. And Miller, just because you had mentioned it, like you have a visual disability and you're legally blind. So one might wonder, what you're talking about, seeing things. And I think not everyone fully understands that people that have, visual impairment can still see things. Like when we hang out, it's me, if I'm like in the room, like I don't know what it looks like through your eyes, but you can see to some degree. You're just not able to see
It's
very well, right?
it's mainly what impacts. So I appreciate you bringing it up in that way. So I have a condition called optic nerve atrophy, which basically means that my connection between my brain and the eyes through the optic nerve isn't as strong as a normal sighted person is. I can even see it. I actually got to see from the last time I had gone to see the eye doctor. My optic nerve looks very pale. It almost looks white, and it shouldn't. But it mainly impacts me from seeing things far away or seeing things at a distance or seeing things peripherally. So my biggest hindrance is not being able to drive, but definitely if something is close up, I am able to see it fairly well. You and I have done things together that obviously would involve vision, such as axe throwing, playing video games, like that type of thing.
Yeah.
And I feel at the very least it's very competitive.
Yeah.
So, I do have some sight, just not as much as a sighted person. That's why I say it's legally, not totally. And it's the thing with a loss of a sense or a partial loss of a sense, it's, a spectrum, right? Just like it would be being on like the autism spectrum, where there are varying degrees to it. So I know, as I'd mentioned before, just the explanation of me being legally blind. At least now you guys you'll know what I'm talking about, because I'd rather make this as concrete as possible instead of giving anybody any false impressions, having the comments loaded up with questions that aren't to do with the actual stories in the podcast, because I don't want the most interesting thing to be is, how is this guy blind and doing a podcast at the same time? Because blind guys can do podcasts.
Hey, wait a second. You said that you saw the ghost of your dad, but you said at another story that you couldn't see at all. I hope somebody got fired for that blunder.
No, that's the thing. It's a varying degree. It's a varying degree of vision. I'll jokingly say that in my day job, which is clerical, nobody looks at an account closer than I do, and that's because I have to look up very close. But that's fine. I'm okay with that. So I hope that clarifies anything. I could always leave like a little blurb as like a pinned comment if need be, just explaining it. But thank you for listening to our first foray into story narration and podcasting, because we did a little from column A and a lot more from column B. And I certainly hope that you guys enjoyed it. If we came across as nervous, it was mostly Cam. No, I'm just kidding. But no, it was a lot of fun.
It was.
I enjoyed actually kind of bouncing off one another and kind of like just telling stories and then sharing it almost, like friends. And even though we're in different cities right now, it's kind of cool that we're able to do this. We're actually recording it from separate locations. I'm in Thunder Bay, and I don't know if Cam wants to mention where he is, but he's in Ontario. I'll just say that.
I'm in a big city in Ontario. I'll let you decide which one you think it is. That starts with a T, has a middle O, another middle O, and an endo.
Imagine if they think there's like a remote community somewhere called like Two.
Two.
But no, honestly, if you enjoyed one story, all five, or even just a few, or if you like listening to the banter of two kind of random newbies in the podcast game,
Yeah.
We hope to keep this going and making it a little more streamlined. Probably going to try to keep it as fun, because I don't know if you can make it any more fun, because I'm not gonna lie, this was a lot of fun. And
I was very pleasantly surprised how fun it was. Like I know you made a joke about us being nervous. I felt this went very naturally, and
no. Let me clarify. I made a joke about you being nervous. No, it definitely was a lot of fun. Natural flow as well, and it's kind of cool to like jump into this space and more or less share something that we're both passionate about and shoot the shit at the same time. And again, thank you all for taking the time to listen to us ramble, rant, and throw in random jokes or Simpsons references.
yeah,
Because we're both obviously fans of that show. I'm sure we could even podcast about Simpsons episodes at one point if we wanted to, but I mean, that's been done to death. But definitely, if you guys are vibing. Yeah, we don't need a Harrison.
We don't need to do the George Harrison. But I do feel like this felt like the natural progression, as like we weirdly like nerd out a bit about 90s YA horror, like Goosebumps and Are You Afraid in the Dark as well. So this is like the Are You Afraid in the Dark campfire that we're doing.
See, I'm actually kicking myself because I meant to ask if you were afraid of the dark during the Saint Sylvester story. But
the tale of the tale of the Saint Sylvester. of the ghostly graveyard. Some of them weren't very creative. The titles. Anyways, I feel like we're kind of digressing a bit here, but
we're definitely tangenting, which is not good. It's not good to go off on tangents. But again, if you guys did enjoy the content, please feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And as I mentioned off the top, make sure to submit your own story suggestions as well. We'll review them. And I can't really say how often we'll do this, especially right now, having day jobs amongst both of us and myself with a son. But we will try to be as prolific an uploader as one can be. And hopefully the more times we do it, the smoother it'll be, and that you guys will enjoy it. I'm apparently told by my co-host that I have a voice for radio. I don't hear it, but I don't know, some others do, so that's awesome. I have to give a quick shout out to this dude for doing his first actual podcast or narration sphere, because I have experience. So the fact that this guy went in essentially with a few lines of practice and cold turkey, man, Cam, I gotta freaking shout you out, man. You did fantastic.
I've learned from the master, dude. Yeah, I might not be like a practiced orator, but I talk a lot, and it helps that the banter is good.
Oh, that's the thing. It's truly important. But with all that, I will sign off again. Justin, aka Miller, or Mill, as the first half in the MILCAM sessions, and I will leave it to Cam briefly to say goodbye, because I don't want to say his goodbye, because that would not make me a good friend, and I don't vibe with not being a good friend.
You giving me the last word, so the last word being Goodbye from Cam, the mysterious Cam, uh, who will be known by only the first name, just like Cher or Prince. And yeah, I'll have my send off being watch the skis. No wait, no
Skies.
wait. What does he say? Keep watching the skis.
Keep watching the skis. Skies.
Skies. Right. Okay, man. Well, let's call it here, and we'll see you folks at some point in the future.
My work is done here. What do you mean your work is done? You didn't do anything, didn't I?
Didn't I? Oh my god.